you go to somebody who has the confidence to call themselves an evidential medium, who has the training to ethically bring through your loved ones on the other side. And for me, it was so important not to put words in the mouth of people who have passed on. I really wanted to sharpen my clarity and evidence for their sake. Like how you said on my podcast, I don't work for the man, I work for the moon. I don't work for the people here. I work for the people in spirit. And I'm trying to be the best voice for them that I can in the most ethical way.
Welcome to CosmicRX Radio, a podcast that gives you real-life tools of spiritual empowerment and pure hype. I'm your host and intuitive guide, Madi Murphy. I'll be serving up your weekly energy readings, cosmic boss interviews, and astro inspiration. Are you ready to love yourself more, manifest your dream life, and own your magic? Let's jump in. Hello, Taylor. Welcome to the Cosmic RX Radio podcast. We have, I'm sure, a ton of cosmic baddies who are going to be absolutely loving this conversation today. How are you doing? What's your vibe over there?
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to connect with the cosmic baddies. There's no group that sounds more resonant with me. So thank you.
You really are. Yeah. You are cosmic baddie material through and through. You are like icon cosmic baddie material.
You know what? Game recognizes game. So are you.
Okay. Well, on that note, with the cosmic baddie energy, would you mind telling everyone your cosmic bio, your big three?
Absolutely. So I am a Scorpio Sun, an Aries Rising, and a Sagittarius Moon.
Love that. So fun, so much fire, so much intensity, but also just like the humor that I just got to be the pleasure of being a guest on your podcast. And your Scorpio depth is like amazing, but then your ability to make it relatable and funny. And so you're like one of those people I talk to and I'm like, yes, you're just so in the like cultural zeitgeist. Like when you speak, I'm like, yes, give it to me in like the meme speak, in the like TikTokification of like I'm like, it's just so fun, entertaining, and engaging to listen to you. So I'm very excited for everyone to just hear your story and get some of these like delectable downloads of wisdom that you carry.
Thank you so much. And honestly, the lexicon and the TikTokification, it is hilarious to me. I love it. I love the Gen Z's terms and I integrate them as much as possible because honestly, as they say, they slap.
Because they slap. Same. I am here for it and I love it. I have my Mars and Sag and I feel like I'm just lit up by like, the girly pop life. Okay, well, let's have you introduce yourself a little bit too because you are, I would say, in true... So Aries are the bad bitch of the zodiac to me, like through and through. I feel like I got into astrology and the archetypal work of understanding your whole chart because I just wanted to understand how to be more Aries. Like I was like, oh wait, I can do that. Like I can be like that. How? Like I need to figure out what to activate in me, how to give myself the permission because I'm over here being like Virgo, good girl, people pleaser, needing a little confidence boost, a little like, again, that bad bitch with the good heart energy. So you have that Aries rising, but then the Scorpio transformative, like living millions of lives with this in one lifetime. And then your Sag moon, like mutability, like, of course I can do millions of things. You are a true multi-hyphenate, multi-passionate, which I think are the only people I F with are like, no, we gotta be doing. We're not a one label kind of a person, but can you tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do now, like how you describe yourself and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I describe myself as a bit of a spiritual polyglot. I don't like to be limited by one thing. So that multi-hyphenate energy that you're describing really resonates with me because as soon as I feel trapped or like I'm expected to show up one way, I will no longer be showing up that way. So
and that is the Aries rising bad bitch. You're like, now you think you know me? You don't know me, okay?
I tell my husband, I'm like, you don't know anything about me.
Yeah. Literally, I love that. That is so. It's so Aries, Scorpio, Sag. It just so is speaking to that big three.
Yeah. He can never predict my next move. And it's interesting because I'm a Scorpio sun November 18th and he's a Taurus sun May 18th. So we're exact inverses. Yeah.
Oh,
So I add the spice.
you add the spice, and he, I'm guessing, just keeps it like grounded,
Grounded,
like
which I really need on an honest level. I need that. So
Oh, but me too. That's what we all need each other. We all need the opposite, especially energies in the zodiac. Oh, I love that. My dad is July 29th. My mom is January 29th. And so I think that was another one of those aha moments I had about astrology, was reading both of their synastry, like some reading I did online for free. I remember stopping my tracks and being like, oh, wow, yes, that is very accurate. And I think we talked a little bit, I'm a Virgo Sun, Pisces Moon. I love the investigation of opposites in the zodiac and how they work together and what we can learn. And I think that's a really fun example of the Scorpio Taurus dynamic. Back to the polygon. Tell people where we're at right now in terms of, obviously you can never be defined, but in terms of the energy that we're in right now.
Yes. So I am an angelic intuitive. That's really where everything started off, was with angel readings. I'm also an astrologer, grew up with a mom who was an astrologer, and I'm an evidential medium. But I never ever thought that this was going to be my path or my life. I wanted to be a comedy writer, a sitcom writer was like my dream, and also an actress. But to be fair, I was never really good at acting, but I was pretty good at comedy writing. And I just kept hitting wall after wall. Nothing was really moving forward. Simultaneously, I've always been very afraid of intuition. And my sun, my moon, my Mercury, my Venus, my Black Moon Lilith are all in the 8th house. And so I've seen spirit people since I was little. I've felt them, I've seen them, and that's very scary when you don't understand your experience of it. So I spent most of my life closing down my intuition, running from it, wanting to stay in the material plane as much as possible. And through that process, I spiritually blindfolded myself. I went down the wrong career path. I was in an abusive relationship. I was sick in my physical body. And I just hit this like really intense dark night of the soul, rock bottom moment right before my 25th birthday. And 25, 26 is like that pre-Saturn return sweet spot where our brains fully develop. I describe it as being a wind-up doll. And up until that point, you've been wound up by society, parents, ancestral conditioning. And then that rock bottom moment is where the doll loses speed. And it's a death and rebirth moment in proper Scorpio fashion, where then you wind yourself up from a soul-led, authentic place and everything starts to change. And so that was my experience. I started to open up intuitively again, to reconnect with my birthright of intuition that we all have. I started to do practice readings on people. And it was like a whole long process and story that I can't go into like everything here, but I went down this path that I called my internship year, where I did free readings for anybody who wanted them for a year. And then that kind of led to another thing, which led to another thing. And like, it's beyond my wildest dreams, the wait list that I'm on right now and the path that I'm on. Like, I never would have planned this for myself. It's also really interesting because my progressed moon is in Pisces right now. Yes. And the first day that it moved into Pisces was the day that I went to the UK to study evidential mediumship. So I feel like I'm just in this big moment of spiritual expansion. And like I was saying before, I never want to rely too heavily on one title because that's what I am now. But as a true 8th house consciousness knows, change is the only constant. And like, who knows what I'll be in 10 years from now.
I love that. It's so well said. No, just tell me you have the most crowded 8th house without telling me. I was following your Instagram, your podcast, and I was getting ready for today. I was like, oh, put your information in. And I just knew, I'm like, this bee is going to have a packed 8th house. And then sure enough, I pulled it up. I'm like, yep, not a lot of white space there. Bam, 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 hanging out. And I think I'm excited to talk about this with you because you probably feel the same way. I think whether it's my courses I teach or my mentorships, like the question I get a lot asked about is the 8th house and the 12th house, right? Because they're such esoteric houses. They're the houses of the unknown, the unconscious, the subconscious. The 8th house, especially, I always say it's like the kind of like psychic basement of like maybe things we don't always want to look at or things we don't want to deal with. When we do, we're like, oh, okay, like we can take our power back. There's some treasure there. But it's like you said, it's especially with dealing with you're living like such eighth house energy in such a literal way of being a medium, but having experienced loss in life, connecting with the other realms as a child. Like these are things that are super overwhelming and scary. And society tells you like, dude, let's not talk about that. Let's not deal with that. But by not looking at that, it's such like a disconnection from your power. So here you are now doing all of this work, following it. It's brought you through, I imagine, many, it sounds like, phoenix from the ashes moments and many more evolutions of yourself to come. Before I get into everything, can you, because like my Virgo brain is like when I hear something I don't know, I'm like, I need to know more about that before I go on. So tell me more about what's evidential mediumship.
Yes, this is very important. So, evidential mediumship is a branch of mediumship from spiritualism, which is a religion. I'm not a spiritualist myself, religion wise, but I really respect spiritualism. And the college that I studied at in the UK, Arthur Findlay College, is a spiritualist college. And mediumship is actually a regulated industry in the UK, it's not here. And evidential mediumship basically means without giving solid pieces of evidence that you could not have known about someone's loved one, you can't just automatically jump to they miss you, they love you, they're proud of you. It's all about proving that life does not end with physical death. And it raises the caliber of what's expected for mediumship. Like you can get names, dates. I get people's zodiac signs all the time, things like that you couldn't have known. And that's the evidence. And then when you get the evidence, it makes the message hits home so much harder. And I think also evidential mediumship is really focused on ethics. There's a lot of philosophies and schools of thought that go into it, but that's the basis, is that it's using evidence to prove that our consciousness does not end with the death of the physical body.
Okay, I love this for you and for me, and I love ethics and integrity and anything that brings the receipts to the spiritual realm, because we know like any industry has the good, the bad, the charlatans, the amazing people, whether it's like a realtor or a lawyer or a doctor, but especially in the spiritual fields, right? There's a lot of people who have, for reasons we won't judge it, everyone's doing the best they can. And sometimes, what you do, you got to do. But there have been, even myself, like I've been approached. I used to live on St. Mark's Place in the East Village, and I would have like people pulling me off the streets like, you have a curse on you. I need to tell. And I'm like, probably, but I don't know. I don't want to have to pay you $1,000 to get rid of it. I think I can figure it out on my own. Or like that fear-based, or that we all know, especially as a medium, people are coming to you, already that they're going through something, right? They're aching for connection. They're hurting. They're looking for answers. So that is like such an opportunity, right? A prime opportunity for someone who would take advantage of someone. So I love this concept of before you can even say one thing, you have to provide that evidence. That's something they would know. And I love for you that zodiac signs come through, because you said that astrology is one of your love languages. So I love that comes through.
Yeah. And spirit speaks our language. If you're a nurse and then you develop mediumship wise, you'll probably be a good medical intuitive and get evidence about how people passed. They speak through the language that we understand and the archetypal consciousness that we understand. But no, it's so true. It's like, first of all, when that lady said you had a curse on you, it's like the only curse on me is that for some reason you think it's okay to approach me in the street. That's my curse. I need stronger boundaries, apparently. Thank you.
That wasn't for my Saturn return. I was just walking around like a 24-year-old, like, literally, thank you for seeing that I'm way too open and leaky right now in my energy.
But it's so true. Like people are grieving and they're in their most vulnerable state. And that's why evidential mediumship is so important. That's why if anybody out here is looking for a mediumship reading, it's really important that you go to somebody who has the confidence to call themselves an evidential medium, who has the training to ethically bring through your loved ones on the other side. And for me, it was so important not to put words in the mouth of people who have passed on. I really wanted to sharpen my clarity and evidence for their sake. Like how you said on my podcast, I don't work for the man, I work for the moon. I don't work for the people here. I work for the people in spirit. And I'm trying to be the best voice for them that I can in the most ethical way. And that's why I love evidence too, because as much as I'm Scorpio and Sag, I have a lot of that Capricorn and my
I
North.
was just gonna
Yes.
say, you
And
beat
so
me to it. I was like, if astrology isn't real, then why is this Scorpio Sag have this stacked Capricorn stellium around the midheaven, right? I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do it with integrity, which is one of the key Capricorn words, in my opinion.
yes. And I don't find spirituality useful when it's floating on a cloud. I want to bring it back down to things we can understand here on
Mm-hmm.
Earth.
Mm. And so, can you tell us a little bit about, probably the same as people who are part of your community and listen to your podcast? If you're here, it's because you resonate with this. Maybe you don't either have people in your life to talk to about it because maybe you're still like in that cosmic closet, or you're just learning to understand other people's stories, more of your own stories, your own superpowers, your own gifts. And I know even coming on your podcast and talking about things and hearing you talk is just helped me even feel more like seen and validated in my journey. So can you tell us a little bit about the transition of, and you said you did your internship year. I love that. Like how you experience this other energy, how you experience from the other side of beings, like how you like, sometimes to me, at least for me, when I would hear other people talk about this, I imagine it being like in a movie, like a shimmering being in front of you. Or I imagine that, having clairaudience was, or being psychic was like hearing like a ticker tape across your mind of like, tell Taylor this right now. Whereas for me, it comes through in song lyrics and sounds and visuals and images and like nudges. So I think it's helpful to maybe break down a little bit about maybe what that experience was for you. And then maybe a little bit of what helped you be in that sort of Capricorn energy of starting to like what are some of the tools that you really enjoyed to help you trust it and keep doing it? And clearly having this like booked, blessed, and busy, beautiful practice.
Yeah. I think practice and consistency, that Capricorn energy is very important. It's like also very tied into your sixth key, that practice
Mm-hmm.
makes magic. I think a lot of people, when they think of intuition, there's a lot of wounds in the collective consciousness. There's a lot of witch wounds. There's a lot of fear. And I always say, feeling the fear and doing it anyway is a prerequisite to this path. And I was so afraid, like I was saying, so feeling and knowing are my two bread and butter clair senses. Seeing and hearing came online a little later for me. But so I would feel similarly to when you're in a room. And I don't know if this is not normal for everyone, but I think they can. Like when you're in a room, you can just feel that you're not alone. Someone's in there with you. Even if you're not seeing them or hearing them breathe, you can just feel someone next to you. That's what was happening to me, as if I was in a crowded room, except it was just me trying to fall asleep. And my knowing would kick in. I'd be like, I know that there's a spirit standing right there. And I would just get so freaked out. My personal belief is that there's no such thing as negative or evil spirits. I know people have different beliefs on that, and I respect everybody's point of view, but my personal belief is that there's no such thing. And I think that there's been so much negative programming in our psyche about the spirit world, about possessions and demons and things, that as soon as the spirit world does the smallest thing to get our attention, we're like, evil. But in reality, what has anyone ever in the spirit world done to us? I think that there's like spiritual psychosis. I think that there's like a lot of different things. But in reality, if people in the spirit world had malintent towards us in the physical world, people who harmed a lot of people and killed a lot of people, and then those people in the spirit world would do something to them. But there's no evidence of, I always say that, give me the evidence for maleficence in the spirit world to the same level that there's evidence for love. It's just not there. So that being said, I started with that year of practice, and I started with angels. So angels and past loved ones, as I'm speaking about them, are not the same thing. I feel angels at the top of my crown, and I feel loved ones around my face and my heart. So it doesn't mean that angels are higher or better. It just means that they're on different frequencies. And angels were a really good, approachable starting point to me because they're like such a divine force of love that just felt very safe for me to surrender into. So it felt like a very accessible starting point. And I think because I started with angels, I also attracted a lot of people to me who had fear around this work, but were also curious and felt very safe in angelic energy too. And I still attract people like that with a lot of religious trauma or backgrounds with
Yes.
fear. I think angels are just a really good, accessible starting point, and I experienced that personally as well. And so I started with using cards, and I am extremely clairsentient through my hands. So as I'm feeling my way through cards, I feel like I set up the language with my angels that as I start, it's now. And as my hands move across, it's later. And I could feel like timings of things, stagnant energy versus where the energy wanted to flow. And I started setting up a clairsentient language with my guides. And that's what I think, like, clairsentience doesn't get enough credit, because I think there's
Yes.
so much focus on clairvoyance and clairaudience. And don't get me wrong, those things are so helpful. But I always say psychic information always comes with a feeling, and that feeling is never anxiety. So a psychic download can come through, and as it comes through, it might feel purposeful, it might feel loving, it might feel intense, it might feel resonant, it might feel bigger than life. And then your reaction to that later might be fear about what that means. But as it's coming in, it's never going to feel anxious or dysregulating. And clairsentience, like, you can really set up, like, even mediumship wise, you can start to move like the person moved. You can start to feel, were they tall, were they not? You can start to work with your hands in ways that I think, and it's interesting because even at Arthur Findlay College, I went in there being like, it's probably going to be all about clairvoyance and clairaudience. And I have that, but not as much. And then they really stressed clairsentience actually as the most important clair, because it weaves everything together. The hearing and the seeing and even the knowing feed the feeling. The feeling is a constant through line called the power that you tap into, and you follow the power, and everything else trickles in to inform and layer with the power. So it's kind of a advanced concept if you aren't like a practicing intuitive, but just know if you are super sensitive and you have that feeling, that's actually the most important psychic sense, in my opinion.
Oh, I love that. And we talked on your podcast that I also related to clairsentience and claircognizance from an early age. And I think those are the ones, again, I thought clairvoyance and clairaudience is what I assumed or pictured it to be like, to have psychic powers. Maddie, tell Taylor this right now. And sometimes I get that mostly only through like songs and pop music. Is if I have any clairaudience, it's like that. But I think that feeling the clairsentience, I love the power. I love how that's described. And I think that anyone who has felt that or feels that, just letting this be like their permission to trust it and to let it move them. And I also really what you said about the practice. And yes, like my Virgo, practice makes magic. And of course, Capricorn just feels like the next evolution of Virgo with the consistency and, again, having integrity. And I think that a lot of times it is just from doing the thing, doing it over and over again. And of course, getting training, working with someone who's can guide you, connecting to some kind of either lineage or an elder or a path of things that we're not just like winging it, especially in the spirit energetic realm, because it can get like, I don't know, you just want to go in with like clarity and boundaries and grounding for yourself too. But the consistency, because I think you realize you're like, I had this feeling, I decided to act on it. I said it to the person, and now I see I connected, like zing, that was it. You can't do that in a bubble, in your own self. So sometimes like we don't start day one with the diploma, if you will. You have to like to show up, to practice and realize like, it really validates when I get that sensation, when I get that feeling, when that thing comes through, when I can trust that and build that like mystical muscle in myself, I can trust it even maybe quicker the next time, or know that this is I'm not just quote unquote like making this up. So I always tell people like, how do I know I'm not just making it up? I'm like, if it's resonant, like what is it about our imagination and intuition? I'm like, they're, to me, like almost they come from the same source within us.
They do. And spirit speaks through imagination.
Yes. Okay. Maybe intuition has maybe some more tools around it, but imagination is like the beginning of it. Like,
yeah.
Why are you envisioning when I'm talking? If you're saying my imagination, like people have been in meditation, I'm like, what do you see over this right now? And they're like, I don't know, it's like a yellow daffodil, but maybe it's my imagination. I'm like, why is your imagination picking a yellow daffodil?
Yeah.
Well, that's super interesting to me, and trusting that and seeing where it wants to take you. And I think that's a beautiful reminder for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, Dr. Raymond Moody, he studied a lot of near-death experiences, and he says that the brain is not the source of consciousness, it's a filter for it. So as our brain develops, we start to filter imagination and consciousness and judge things and question our intuition. And it makes it harder for us to access our intuition. But if you think of children who just live in imagination land, they're also intuitively wide open. So I think as we start to filter consciousness being like, this is who I am, this is good, this is not good, this is what I do here, it takes us out of co-creation and creativity with the present moment. And all intuition, all mediumship happens in the present moment. And imagination happens in the present moment too. It's all like a creative co-creation with our psyche.
I love that. I love that so much. And that's so well said. And it feels like, I know I'm paraphrasing, Albert Einstein said, the head is here to be the servant of the heart, not vice versa. But that's just so much more illustrative, beautiful, poetic way of reminding us that. And I know my house right now, as we speak, is filled with these 6 children under the age of 3. And I look around and they're so imaginative, and they're definitely all so intuitive. Lots of water signs, Scorpios, Cancers in my family. And so I'm like, and I see them all and I'm like, wow, like you're all just in this place of play, but also I can just tell like the energy switches in the room or something happens and they're all just like, they feel it. And I'm like, I've been thinking a lot about as a parent. And I know your mom was an astrologer. And so I'm curious a little bit of what that was like growing up with someone who's, most people I work with are coming from religious trauma or a background that did not encourage anything in the spiritual metaphysical world. So I've been thinking a lot about, I'm excited, but also open to learning more about how to raise children, trusting their gifts, staying regulated, staying grounded, but also not blocking off the things, whether if they have connection to the spirit realm, knowing, a creativity, even just like a neurodivergence that makes them think about something in a different way. How do I like cultivate that instead of, I feel like a lot of our generation is learning how to revive that after being cut off from it. So can you actually share us a little bit about what it was like to grow up with a mom that was an astrologer and just like how that impacted you? And I don't know, just anything that, especially for any of the parents listening, that might be like interesting to hear. I guess it's really cool that you followed that and it's still with you in a really beautiful way.
Yeah. I think my mom did a really good job of letting me inform her about who I was instead of trying to predict who I would turn out to be because of her knowledge of my birth chart. So when I was born, she did cast my chart, and she had this really cool thing that she put in my room, which was like my birth chart. And we joked when I was older, and she was like, I thought you were going to be like pregnant in high school. Like with all of my like 8th house stellium, she was like, I did not know like what was going to happen. And so I think she did a really good job of it. It could be really scary, especially because there's these like pop astrologers on TikTok who are like, if you have the moon in the 8th house, it means your relationship to your mom is dark and shadowy and she's abandoning you and blah, blah, blah. And I think that she did a really good job of, and I always say this when parenting stuff comes up, that it's like not about controlling or changing your child. It's about regulating your own nervous system so that you don't get triggered by what's going on and you can stay like conscious and clear to guide them. And that's like the evolution of consciousness and ancestral healing. And I think my mom did a really good job of that, where she didn't get triggered by my super gnarly birth chart and my Chiron in Cancer and all of that. She could have taken personally and gotten really in her head about. And she just looked at my birth chart, understood it at moments where I would express, like I was so possessive of her. Like she would laugh it off and maybe attribute it to parts of my birth chart, but she always let me lead with that. And so I think that that was like a really great way to not be overly pathologizing my birth chart, because I think that can be like a shadow side of astrology.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The pathologizing and the like reductive, or like the almost, like kind of the woman on the street with me with the curse, like using it as like a curse or a way of controlling, or even, I think a lot about astrology, and even especially as being a mother now, like I want to use all this like vast knowledge I have of it to like to help me guide them, not decide them. Like, not like, okay, well, you're this, you're that. It's, I just understand that like I can take things a little less personally, or I can understand that, yes, that might like how to regulate myself around that, or that that's a gift, or maybe even a obstacle you might have, but I can like be a bit more aware of that. And to me, like that's one of my favorite things is the interrelational element of not pathologizing, but being like, my Virgo loves the context of, I understand that's why you're acting that way.
Yeah.
Cool. Now I can make a better informed decision of how to respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good tool for self-reflection and awareness and understanding. And so I think my mom probably also had more of that consciousness behind the scenes than she like
Wow.
actually showed me. But yeah,
Wow.
my mom, it was like the 80s. A lot of people didn't know what astrology was yet. My mom and I would do something called tea and charts, where we would look at people's charts together and brew tea and sit at the kitchen table. And
Oh my God. I love that.
everyone, so I have this like Scorpio uncle, and everybody that he was dating, he would send their birth time to my mom and would want her to look at their charts. And back then I was just a kid. I didn't understand ethics, but no, we kept it nice always. But yeah, so I learned a lot. And there would be people that came, like my mom wasn't necessarily a professional astrologer. That wasn't her job, but she was an astrologer behind the scenes, and she would do mostly like all of the friends and the family's birth charts, and people would come to her, and I was just glued to her side like a little sponge watching all of it.
What a gift. First of all, I love that. Did your mom also invent the concept of tea and spilling tea? We're going to sip tea and we're going to spill some tea, like that Scorpio uncle bringing another Gemini moon around or something. So I love that. That is so cute and so beautiful. But really, what I want to commend your mother. Definitely sounds like she is such a soul-led visionary to understand being an astrologer in a time where, first of all, anyone who also was an astrologer before we had apps and computer softwares, I'm like, shout out to them. People who casted the charts.
Yes.
I could
she
never.
like gets a pencil out and starts drawing stuff. And I'm like,
no.
Wow.
No, like I talk about like prohibitive, like I'm like, that would be immediate barrier to entry for me. I am not like a STEM girly. I am not a math degrees. I am storyteller, creative arts. I'm like, that would be immediately like, I'm interested in that, but I couldn't. So I shout out to that and shout out to her doing this in a time where it wasn't like, it's like becoming more mainstream now, but it's even still barely. But also on top of all of that, her doing it in this way that just sounded so ethical, so open, so expansive, so more about like the soul evolutionary role, not just, you have an 8th house placement, therefore you're this, that, and stuff that we get caught up in, whether it's in like old dusty astrology books written by, I don't know what, old white men that I don't appreciate anymore, or just clickbaity trolling TikTok accounts, right? There's a lot of astrology out there, or hot takes that I'm just like, ooh, what? Like that doesn't feel good for anyone. So I really appreciate I think you're doing a really beautiful job of clearly, like, I think my mom always said, I just want you to leap from my shoulders, right? To come from her. And I think, I'm getting emotional, but I just think it's really beautiful that you're getting to take what she did and now take it out into this. Maybe she could have imagined, maybe she saw it all, but it's so beautiful that now you get to do this in your work and touch so many people and speak through like this lens of this like cosmic love language of astrology in multiple different realms. And I think that that's just such again, I think so much of being a parent is like wanting to be that guide, but a beautiful wish of you just keep like expanding out these seeds that like one generation plants and the next generation takes it even further and farther and does it with more like love and more beauty and artistry. And I think that's just, I don't know, just your life is like a really beautiful testament to her legacy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And she was a Pisces. So my mom passed in 2021. She is a Pisces sun and moon in the 12th house. And my aunt, her sister, was so she's just like naturally like a spiritually enlightened being. Like she was so ahead of her time. It was actually insane. Yeah. And she did invent spilling the tea. So
I think she did also, because that means that if she's Pisces sun, moon, 12th house, so she's an Aries rising like
just
you.
Like me. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, cosmic bad bitch, the leader, trailblazer, Of course. She's like, listen, there's this thing called spill and tape. It's going to be really relevant in 20 years. So
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm obviously so sorry to hear about your loss. I just lost my mom about coming on the 6-month mark. And right
Yeah.
now it's actually like,
so fresh. I'm so
it's
sorry.
so fresh. I think I'm like so in it. I don't even know how in it I am. I keep saying, I'm like, I know I'm going to look back on this time and be like,
Yeah.
you're so raw. But Saturn moved on to my moon in
Mhm.
March 2023. The day Saturn moved into Pisces, I found out I was pregnant. I was like, oh my God. And I had been trying for a while. So it was like, oh, it was like a full moon conjunct my sun.
Mm.
It was so beautiful. Virgo full moon, Saturn moving into Pisces. But then I also found out my mom was diagnosed with a very rare kind of offshoot of dementia that's like dementia and Parkinson's mixed together. So it was a very interesting threshold I've been in of like caretaking for my mom and then losing my mom while becoming a mother
Yeah.
twice over. And so I am like, when like you know what you don't know? All I can know right now is I'm like, I don't even understand how much I'm in it. I feel like in a year or 2 years or 5 years, I'm going to look back on this time and be like, whoa, like she was just still. I think for me, the thing I keep feeling is like the energetics of like a wobble. Like my mom, I did know I had about 2 years to prepare, like knowing that the time was going to come. We didn't know when,
Mm.
which is in some ways can be hard and also helpful. It's all like very complicated. But the thing I found, and I'm curious for you, it was like the energetic wobble of I could literally feel myself, especially in the weeks after in my dream time, like my soul was like reshuffling itself. Like I would have these dreams almost like falling through an elevator shaft. And I would have all these,
Yeah.
not visitations, but watching her in moments in our life. And it's almost like my soul was trying to figure out who I was in this body, in this earth, without like the body that carried me. Because I was like, I know that a connection is eternal, but there is something about the physical loss that like I was preparing for it mentally for so long and spiritually. And we had a beautiful death doulas and shamanic rituals. And it was very beautiful. It was very sacred. But that was very surprising to me, of a feeling I wasn't expecting, like a falling, going through portals or something. And I'm sure I'm still landing, but I know that you talk openly about grief in your work. And of course, at this 8th house stellium and being a Scorpio, you're like, yes. So in terms of, I know it's a larger, we could do a whole podcast on this, but is there anything, as someone who sits with people who are, I'm sure, going through either fresh loss or deep loss all the time, is there something about the grieving process that you would just want to, with your beautiful like Mercury and Sag wisdom, just want to share, or something you've experienced, or something that like even from the other realm that you're like, this just feels like a universal truth, or I don't know, just some kind of something on your heart around grief and loss?
Yeah, there's so much to say. First of all, being in the first year is just a time where you have to do anything you can to survive. The first year of losing someone very significant to you, you're relearning who to be in the world without that person. And it's a complete rebirth moment. And you just have to be so kind with yourself. And we in this society just expect, get over it. It's been 3 months. But no, 1 year is just the raw, new, open, cracked open soil that is all about embracing the cycles of whatever emotions are coming up. It's also most likely going to crack your intuition even wider open. It's like a big cracking open in that grief because it's a complete rebirth moment. And then for me, it took about 2.5 years for me to have one full day where I wasn't thinking about my sadness or actively trying not to think about my sadness. So just let this be a permission slip to you and anyone in the collective who's going through grief that, like, think about how long the planets take to make some of their cycles. Like, we need to let ourselves breathe and expand and be reborn in an extremely vulnerable, energetic place. Not to mention, my perspective is that birth and death are the two things that open us up to the spirit world and change us most. And you have them converge on each other. So it's like the most insane experience. And so I think that feeling of wobbling and portal energy is exactly right. It's like we just realize there's even more depth to this human experience through these two portal experiences that happened back to back. How do I find my footing when my footing is no longer above ground? And that is a really powerful process that only brings you deeper into the human experience and initiates you to be an even more powerful guide and healer and human on earth at this time. I also really believe in the grief recovery method. It's what I did when I was in the depth of my grief. It's like a little purple workbook, and you can do it with a group or with a professional, but it's like a really powerful healing modality that I share with everyone who's grieving because it's really like the turning point for me. And I do want to say from a mediumship perspective that our relationship with our loved ones doesn't end in physical death. And for that reason, I don't believe that there's any such thing as last words because the soul is still speaking a language of love to us through synchronicity, through signs, through song lyrics. It's like there's no such thing as last words. They're just speaking a different language from where they are. And the spirit world is right here. We think about it. We have these like programmings like heaven is up on a cloud and hell is down below. But no, the spirit world is superimposed over our world. They're right here where we are standing is sacred ground. We just have to shift our perspective to tap into it. So it's so tender. I think there's also a big element of supporting your immune system and your nervous system through grief because it takes such a toll on your physical body. Like I had the worst period cramps of my life when I was in the depths of my grief. And similar to you, I had, after my mom passed, 8 months later, I got married and my mom wasn't there. And she was like my best friend. And I always say if she could have done anything in this world, she would be an astrological matchmaker. But she was just so far ahead of her time. Like she lived for the tea about all my dates, my boyfriends. I would give her the debrief after everything. And so for her not to be at my wedding was like really tough. But at the same time, my husband's dad was passing of cancer. He passed in the same week the following year as my mom. So it was, I also understand big life events converging in a really intense rebirth way. And I had many dreams of falling through the floor. And in fact, I'd had many dreams of falling through this well of the deepest grief and sadness I've ever felt that I would wake up choking, like physically choking on it. And so it's so much bigger than we can even understand. But at the same time, it's all representative of love. It's representative of how much we care and how much love there is. And it's just a processing of how our love isn't going to look the same way in physical form, but it still exists. And our love is transforming right alongside us.
I love that. So well said. I love that you shared the workbooks. I do love a practical tool and a guide and like a roadmap. So I want to look into that. And I love the being gentle with yourself. I can feel that. And I can feel the cracking open of the initiation. So I'm like, wow, it's so much. And I know that this is just helping. Yeah, it feels very expansive. Like I almost can't understand it all right now. I don't have words for it, but I know I will reflect. And I think that spirit is all around us. Like I always knew that in like my bones, and I felt that since I was a young girl, but like experiencing the moments I've had with my mom since then, or the signs, the symbols. She loved a little drama. She loved a little like a moment. And so she has sent us some signs. We're like, okay, mom, you didn't have to go so hard with that. Literally, like, I'm like, oh, like the house where we took care of her in was next to my sister's house. And she gets a knock on her door. And we kept being like, is that mom? Is that a sign from mom? I don't know. Let's not rush her. Let's not. And I'm like, we'll know when it's her. And then, yeah, there was a day that right before my sister found out she was pregnant. And we were like, we didn't know yet, but we had this knock on the door. It was like the environmental protection conservative group out here. And they're like, just so you know, across the way, that little house, that cottage, my mom's house, there's a bald eagle and they just keep flying between this and your house back and forth. And can you keep an eye on it and make sure no one like messes with them? And my sister's like, yeah, I think that bald eagle's keeping an eye on us. And we were just laughing because we were like, wow, there hasn't been a bald eagle out here in like decades by my sister's house. But also my mom, she was just very dramatic with like how she would show up for something. And we're like, of course she's not going to show up as like the monarch or the cardinal, as like my aunt, my other people, my family. We're like the bald eagle. But then after that, we all received a little bit of news of something that we've been waiting on. And it felt so beautiful. And I was just so grateful that we're open and we're all aligned and we're all open to the signs. Because to me, I'm like, it just makes the grieving, there's the hard days, but then there's days where it just feels like my mom is wrapping me in like a cozy pink blanket of like love. I feel her. And same as you, my husband lost his father like basically the year before my mom.
Yeah.
So I had just had my first baby, and my baby was like 4 months old, and we're just figuring out like my mom is sick. My father-in-law passed unexpectedly. I had this baby, and then I found out like that I got pregnant again. And this baby came 9 months to the day after my father-in-law passed. So my husband, who's a little bit more of a muggle than I am, but he's open and he's very in tune, but I think that stopped him in his tracks of, okay, his dad, Pop decided to send us like one more beautiful gift in terms of, it's like my son, Santino, who's named after him. And there's just moments like that. And like you, I'm sure we have like too many to ever list, but it's just in like this reminder to people like, it does, like it goes on. And I knew that, but the way I can feel it now with my experiential wisdom is so beautiful. And I just really deeply admire and value the work that you do to connect. 'Cause I know I haven't done any kind of medium work with my mom yet because it just feels like too fresh. But I have had like a few, I can think of 5 crystallizing, life-changing readings I've had in my life. And 2 of them were with mediums who someone sent me that I didn't know why I was there. I didn't know who I was trying to connect with. And they shared something. And this is what I love about the work that you do. It's the transmission. There's information coming through, but it was like the craziest, like shamanic energy. It was like energy release, angelic light coming down, where it was more than just a reading. It was like a releasing, an opening, a remembering, and stuff that really changed the course of my life, my family's life, and I believe even like my children's lives. Information I got from my ancestors or grandparents that I never even knew. So I just think that grief is so complex. You're such a wonderful guide for that. But I just love the mediumship, the angelic work you do is just, I just bow to it. It's not my, like it's when you watch someone and their gifts, I'm like, that's so cool. It's not my realm, but I know how powerful it is to be on the other side of it in a reading like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love like how you take it with such integrity. And I know, again, I could talk to you forever and I have so many questions I want to ask you about the angel realm and all these things, but I do want to honor your time. And I know that I'm sure some people listening to this, I have a lot of people that come to me who have similar gifts or inklings or curiosity. Tell us about your offering a mentorship program that's coming up. Is this something like if someone wants to go deeper with learning about the angelic realm, mediumship, astrology, all of the above? Can you tell us a little bit about this program or offering?
Yeah, thank you. And before I get into that, first of all, thank you for everything you just said. That was so sweet. And secondly, I just feel called to share the whole theme of losing a parent and then becoming a parent. For anybody that's listening that feels gutted that maybe your parent wasn't here to meet your baby, I just want you to know they do know your baby, that there is nothing keeping them from knowing your baby, from holding your baby, from interacting with your baby. And that feels really important to share. And there are countless times that I connect with somebody and they're like, I never knew that grandma. She passed before I was born. And I was like, she knows you and she's talking to you and she's seen. So there's still relationships and usually they're the ones holding your baby in the spirit world before they come through. So I just want you to know that it's all a soul family and they all know each other. So don't feel grief about that. Yeah.
So true. That is, I co-sign on that. I co-sign on it.
Yes. So, yeah, my mentorship program is called Becoming the Oracle. It's planned to launch in the fall. I am going to only take 8 mentees at a time, and it's not going to be astrology based, but it's going to be intuition, psychic, and not exactly an emphasis on mediumship, but it will translate. But it's all about developing intuition, becoming the oracle, stepping into our intuitive gifts, and it's a container that is suitable for all levels, but I think best for people who are already getting intuitive information or feel like they're at a plateau with their intuitive practices. And it's for people who want to really go to the next level and maybe even make this a professional career or just really tap into their gifts in a next level. It's basically taking the summation of everything I've learned in my almost 10 years of being a professional in this space, everything I wish I could have known from the beginning that would have made it a lot easier, and crafting it in this it's going to be 8 or 9 weeks. I'm not exactly sure yet, but in these modules that are going to be pre-recorded, go at your own pace. But then there's also going to be components of weekly meetups and practices and coaching and all of that. So it's going to be super powerful. There are 2 prerequisites to it, which I also just recommend standing alone too. One of them is my Be Your Own Angelic Intuitive Workshop. You can find everything on angelsandAmethyst.com, and is spelled out. That's just important to get to know your psychic senses, to start to build a relationship and a language with your angels, to start to identify your main clairs, all of those things, to start a daily card practice. That is going to build your confidence up to a level where you're ready to start the mentorship. And then the second prerequisite is called Healing the Witch Wound. And it's one of the most important components of this work. Isn't just the intuitive stuff. It's everything that tries to block it and get in the way. That's deeply rooted in a historical, systematic, collective consciousness wound called the witch wound that comes from religious and societal and patriarchal programming. And it teaches us that it's not safe to be powerful. It's not safe to be spiritually other. It's not safe to share what we know. We feel like we have to hide or dim ourselves. So healing the witch wound is the other prerequisite for the course. And then we're going to build upon those themes. And so much of the container is really focused on fear of being wrong, how our ego blocks our intuition, how it's like a very vulnerable thing to be a professional psychic, intuitive, and medium. You have to really trust on a deep level. So it's not going to be just your typical intuitive development course where we're just doing exercises. It's really fleshing out mind, body, soul, all the elements of what it takes to become the oracle and prepare you on the path to do that.
I love that. And I'm sure just everything in your chart, your 8th house stellium, all that Capricorn, your Mars and Gemini was going to have everything be very thorough but digestible and a real treat for anyone who gets to be in one of those 8 spots. That's beautiful. And we'll obviously link everything in the show notes, but is there a best way for people to reach out to you if they have a question or just want to get to know you more?
Yes. And just to clarify, I'm going to take 8 at a time. So I'm going to run it more than once, but it will be of 8, especially because of with international audiences, just grouping together the right 8 to work with each other. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Angels and Amethyst with underscores. I will never DM you for a reading. It's sad that we have to say that, but I feel compelled to protect the audience. You can find me at angelsandamethyst.com. I have my own podcast called Magic Hour Podcast, where you can hear more about my mediumship journey in the UK. I have a 4-part series that builds upon what I shared here called My Mediumship Journey at the Real Life Hogwarts. I really recommend that series, and welcome to Magic Hour episode 101 gives more of my story too. So I'm out there, I'm around, and you can always email me at taylor@angelsandamethyst.com. If you are interested in the mentorship, email me there and I will add you to my list of people who are interested in it.
Beautiful. I love that. Taylor, I hope we can chat again, have you come on again, because there's 14,000 other things I want to talk about, but that is the problem of talking to a true multi-hyphenate, multi-passionate, very articulate, and just fun to talk to cosmic baddie. But thank you for just sharing your time and wisdom so generously with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time and really grateful to be here.
Beautiful. Thank you everyone for listening, and go follow her, go check her out. You will not be disappointed. And thanks again, Taylor.
Thank you.
Do you love getting your Cosmic RX for the week here and want more? Make sure to sign up for our premium subscription so you can get exclusive access to bonus podcast episodes, all of my astrology info for the month ahead, and live new and full moon calls to help you manifest your dream life with an intentional international community of other cosmic baddies. Sign up through our link in show notes. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to know more about CosmicRX, head on over to thecosmicrx.com. And if you really love this show, I'd love it if you left a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. I super love hearing from you and reading your reviews. All right, you cosmic baddie, tune in next week. And until then, remember,
Love yourself fully, work your magic, and take no shit.